Beloved friends, the fourth Sunday of Lent that we celebrate today is called Lateris Sunday because it invites us to pause and rejoice even while we continue our season of penance and conversion. Have you ever judged someone too quickly, thinking they were perfect for a role, or perhaps not even fit at all, only to be surprised later? I have a friend who works as a human resources personnel. She tells me how she hired someone she had believed was the best, and every member of that board thought this was the best choice, but it turned out to be a flop. Today's first reading from the first book of Samuel, chapter 16, tells the story of Samuel visiting the house of Jesse to anoint a new king after King Saul failed. When Samuel sees the strong and impressive Eliab, he assumes he must be God's choice. But God corrects him. People look at appearances while God looks at the heart. After 7 sons pass by and are rejected, Samuel asks if there is another. Only then is the youngest, David, chosen. Now, David was out tending sheep and not even invited to the meeting. Notice here how God chooses the forgotten one. And this is a pattern throughout Scripture. God often chooses the people others overlook. Sometimes his criterion is difficult to understand. Imagine the story of the call of Samuel. What about the election of Saul? The story of the prodigal son, this lost sheep, the woman caught in adultery, and many more in the scripture. One thing all these stories portray is that God's level of care for the world and his understanding of the individual creatures is overarching. Moreover, there is something important about the text that we need to pay attention to. The Hebrew word used when the scripture says God looks at the heart is lebab. This word signifies the inner person, including the mind, the will, the character, and emotions, the place of courage, faith, and trust, rather than just the physical organ. Thus, God chose David because his heart was open to God. Now, years ago, in one of our parishes, there was a quiet man who volunteered every week setting up chairs for parish events. He never spoke much, never sat on committees, never appeared important. One day, I discovered that this man had been quietly paying groceries bills for struggling families in the parish for years. But nobody, including I, knew it. And mind you, this man had no title nor recognition, but his heart was open to God. In the Gospel of St. John, chapter 9, that we read today, religious leaders believe they can see clearly. They are educated, they are respected and confident, but they fail to recognize Jesus for who he was. Meanwhile, the man who was born blind, someone ignored by the society, gradually comes to see who Jesus truly is. Now, let us understand that most often, people see what they expect to see. If something does not fit their mental picture, the brain filters it out. Psychologists call this intentional blindness. And this is why someone can overlook something obvious to your disbelief. Moreover, pride, resentment, fear, or prejudice can quietly blind a person. When the heart is already decided, the mind stops noticing evidence that challenges it. In the scripture, many people look, but they do not see. The issue is not eyesight, it is attention of the heart. A distracted or hardened heart misses what a humble and attentive heart easily notices. Therefore, spiritual sight does not come from status, intelligence, or appearance. Rather, it comes from a heart that is open to God. In the gospel narrative, the physically blind man progressively gains spiritual sight and finally worship Jesus as Lord. Whereas the Pharisees, who claim to have perfect spiritual vision, regress into deeper blindness due to their pride and refusal to admit they could be wrong. My dear friends, the healing of the blind man that we read today shows in concrete form what St. Paul teaches in the second reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians chapter 5, that Christ opens our eyes so that we who live in darkness may now walk as children of light. Perhaps the real question today is, what kind of heart are you forming? A heart that is proud and cannot see God clearly, even in the least of his people? Remember, a humble heart begins to see what others miss. Like the Pharisees, do we think we already see everything perfectly? Or are we holding on to grudges, prejudices, or self-righteousness that blind us to the work of God in others? That is why this Lent is not just about giving up things, but allowing God to reshape our hearts so we can see as he sees. Now, how do you plan to do this? Let me suggest something. The sacrament of reconciliation can be a good place to start, taking the step to go to confession. Also, this week, making an intentional effort to notice someone you usually overlook, maybe a coworker, maybe a neighbor, maybe a parishioner. Finally, today let us present one simple petition before God, saying, Lord, give me the kind of heart you saw in David, and the kind of eyes that recognize you in the man born blind. Because when my heart changes, my vision changes as well. May God bless you.